Hello, welcome back to Blender Sushi channel. This is another video tips and trick. In this video, I'm going to take you through the image file browsers in Blender. If you want to kind of preview image, if you need like an image browser, you can always use Blender. That's another functionality that you can use using Blender. As we know already, Blender is an open source tool, and you can use it to create like awesome 3D animations or visual effects. But Blender has a lot of functions that you can really use to do other things. Like for example, in this case, to use it as image preview, image browsers kind of thing. So you don't need to use other app. So when you open Blender, this is kind of the layout you get. It's the Blender default layout, and you can choose other layouts. For example, the animation layout, maybe compositing layout, or scripting layout, or video editing. But really, what you need in this case is you want to use Blender as image browser. You can do that really quick. Instead of going to file open and open like a Blender file, by default file open should take you to like a file browser, and you can of course open like Blender file. You can actually use the file browsers to look at image, and the way to do that is in the default layout here. You can split the layout like that by, you see the triangle at the corner there. You can split the layout like that, and you can, of course, if you don't want too many splitting layout like this, you can merge the layout by selecting in the lower left hand corner there, and just here I have the 3D view, but what I really want is one to be the file browser, which is this guy right here, file browser, and the one at the bottom to be my image editor. So in this case, we're almost ready to have like an image browser. The next thing I'll do is to check in my desktop and find an image folder. I have one example that I just downloaded some image from my iPhone earlier today. And with a file browser, this is like you already know what it does. This is the basic file browser. You can have it the one with just a file name and the image size. You can also have one with like the date and time of the image. You can also have it as like a thumbnails. So this is the thumbnails. You just wait a little bit, like few seconds, and Blender will load everything. Blender can load all kind of image and video files. It's including PNG or TIFF or JPEG, all kind of image, MOV, MP4, like almost all kind of types of files. Let's open up one of these. Let's open up this one. So if you're selecting an image, you see it's telling you you're about to drag and drop this image. You can drop it into the image viewer, image editor. What is it called again? UV or image editor. Okay, this is your image editor, and now you have this image over here. What I'm doing here is I'm just using a middle mouse button and hold the middle mouse to kind of pan around this 2D environment, and I can zoom in, zoom out using the scroll wheel. And yeah, if you want like a full screen, you can use the shortcut Control and up arrow. So Control and up arrow is a toggle between full panel for the image editor, and Control up again will take you back to the previous layout. So that's a really handy shortcut, and I use that all the time. And if you want to further, let's say, of course, at this point you can save this arrangement as your Blender setup. Just save it as my image browser and save it. Let's say if you're like, okay, you start a new Blender file and then you want to go back to that file, you just open my image browser and it's gonna take you to where you left it with all the layouts configurations, and it's also opening this image for you. And this image that's open in Blender is actually kind of referencing the original image. So there are a few things that you can do with it. Actually, a lot of things you can do. You can actually start painting the image and actually save it as a new file. I'll show you. Also, you can use the grease pencil in Blender. Grease pencil is kind of like a way you do the marking in Blender, but it's not like a permanent marker. It's only there as a for your own. Let's say the way to do it is to hold D and use the left mouse button. You start drawing. This is actually the grease pencil markers, and you can see it from this panel right here. And this guy is called grease pencil. It has its own layers called GP layer by default, and the default ink is black color, but you can change it into other color. Let's see, tint color. That's not the actual. This is what you want, the stroke color. Let's say I've changed it to white or red or blue, and I can make the stroke a bit larger as well. I think it's here, thickness change. So this is the grease pencil. It's a way you can do the marking, but it's not permanent. Like I said, you can delete this, and this is actually not saving it to the file. It's a handy way to do some marking and give the blend file to other person, maybe your friend or other artist. But there is another way where you can do the painting on the image and it's actually more permanent. Just be careful with this because you might potentially kind of saving it to the original file. You don't want to do that, but I'm gonna show it to you. This is the viewer. This is the default, right? You can, of course, you can use other image, like for example this image of my hand. Be careful with this. If you accidentally drag into a 3D view, of course you kind of drop the image into like a 3D objects, because of course Blender is a 3D software. This is what you usually want to do, right? Don't worry about this. For now, we're just gonna use it as image editor. Okay, back to this guy. If I drop this photo, and that's what I get. Now I'm gonna show you that you can also paint on this photo and leave it like a permanently. So I open the left panel, and this is I'm gonna switch this panel. Instead of view, I'm gonna switch it to paint, and you can see we have more options with this is kind of like Photoshop or Painter or any image editor, and you can start drawing here. And by default, the brush actually has some kind of opacity. So when you're painting over it, it's kind of 70% opacity. You can make it maximum opacity and just paint on top of it as you please. This is just like Photoshop, okay? But a little bit simpler. Although you have perhaps you have layer and stuff, but that's not painting layer. Don't worry about it. But for this video, I'm just gonna show you the basics. Of course, feel free to explore the paint editor in Blender, but for now, really you can just paint on the image. Now, like I said, be careful when you're doing editing. This is actually almost we haven't saved it yet, but you can see this is there is like an asterisk, like a star on the image there. That means the image hasn't been saved. But if I'm actually saving, be careful, don't do this. Save image is gonna saving it into the original image. You want to save as image. and then maybe save it as a different name. This way you don't you don't save it into the original image. So I'm gonna save it into a different name. Now as you can see, we have like a copy of the original image, and then with all this doodle that I did. Yeah, so you have all kind of option here. Change the radius, change the brush, cloning, and all sort of stuff. Just play around with it. Okay, so I guess that's it for today. What else I can show you to you? There's this handy thing in Blender. So at the moment, this is a folder, just a single folder with all these images. There's actually a trick in Blender. If you have a folder with a multiple folder inside it, let's say I have like a folder number 1, and I put some image. Okay, maybe name it as JPEG, and another folder and call it TIFF, and I select all the JPEG and put it into that folder and put the TIFF inside TIFF, and back to the file browser in Blender. And then if I refresh, you see in this folder I don't have any image. I cannot see any image, but you can actually turn on the 1 level, 2 level, or 3 level. So that way it's gonna look through like a deeper inside the folder. So if I make it 2 level, and actually if I turn on the filtering and I just turn on the image, and I can turn off the folder. Now I'm looking at the 1 deep level of the image, so I can see all the images, which is really handy if you have multiple folder. Like if you have another folder inside this, and just maybe I name it hand, and I put this the photo of my hand inside it, go back to it and refresh. If I make it none, see I have nothing. Oops, now I'm in the desktop kind of level. Now let's go back to the iPhone folder. I cannot see any image, but if I turn on 1 level, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 image. If I go 2 level, it's gonna go 2 level deep, and I can see the hand, JPEG hand, which is from this folder. This folder is inside JPEG. Yeah, so that's super handy, and you can drag all this image into the viewer, and you can now check the image, and you can zoom in really close. I just make it full screen, and you can have a look at the image that way. So yeah, that's if you want to do a quick if you ever need like a quick image viewer or image editor, Blender can be your tool, because it's open source. It will work on any kind of system, Windows, Mac, or Linux, and you can just download it as a zip, and you can put it in the USB, and you can use it in the library, or like your school, university computer. Any computer will work, can run Blender. Okay, so hopefully this video is useful. So that's how you use Blender as image viewer and image editor. Okay, thanks again.